यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा। थैंक यू।
जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजा चक्राचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद् ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नमाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्यामा कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। मथुरापुरी धाम की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्याम वेद भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hare Hare. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णकृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।
हरे कृष्ण।
ओम नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यास ततो जाय मुदीरये शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्य श्रवण कीर्तन हृदयन्तस्तो हि अभद्राणि विदनोति श्रुहत्सतां नष्ट प्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टुकी। हरे कृष्णा। So today we are reading Canto 1, Chapter 12, entitled The Birth of Emperor Parikshit, and few days ago we started the new chapter, chapter number 12. So today is the verse number, text number 6. So I will recite 3 times and you please recite after that. Kim te kamaha Isparha Mukunda Manaso Dvijaha Adijahur Mudam Ragyah Shudhi Tasya Yate Tattare Kim Te Kama Surasparha Mukunda Manaso Dvijaha Adijahur Mudam Ragyah Shudhistasya Yate Tare Kim te kamaha surasparha mukunda manaso dvijaha adhidujar mudam ragyah kshudastasya yate tare. Please recite.
Kim te kama surasparha mukunda manaso dvija adhijahrur mudam ragya Kshuditasya yate tare.
Kim te kama surasparha mukunda manaso dvija adijahrur mudam rajnya kshuditasya yate tare.
Hare Krishna. Kim te kama sura aspriha mukunda manaso dijaha adhija muhur mukundam ragya chuditasya yathe tare. Hare Krishna.
Kim te kama surasparha mukunda manaso dvija adijahur mudam rajna Shruditasya yate tare.
Hare Krishna. Kim te kamaha sura sparha mukunda manaso dvijaha adija hurur mudam ragya shuddhi tasya yate tare. Hare Krishna.
Kim te kamaha surasparsa mukunda manaso dvija adijarhu mudam ragya shuddhi tasya yate tare. Hare Krishna.
Kim te kama surasparha mukunda manaso dvija adijahrur mudam ragnya kshuditasya yathe tare.
Okay, so I will read word to word translation. Kim, what for? Te, all those. Kama, objects of sense enjoyment. Sura, of the denizens of heaven. Isparha, aspirations. Mukunda Manasa, of one who is already God conscious. Dvija, the Brahmanas. Adi Jahu, could satisfy. Mudam, pleasure. Ragya, of the kings. Shudhitasya, of the hungry. Yatha, as it is. Itare, in other things. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O Brahmanas, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspire for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. But there are two things in the world which can satisfy living beings. When one is materially engrossed, he is satisfied only by sense gratification. But when one is liberated from the conditions of the material modes, he is satisfied only by rendering loving service for the satisfaction of the Lord. This means that the living being is constitutionally the servitor, and not one who is served. Being illusioned by the conditions of the external energy, one falsely thinks himself to be the served, but actually he is not served. He is servant of the senses like lust, desire, anger, avarice, pride, madness, and intolerance. When one is in his proper sense, by attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but he is only a servant of the senses. At that time, he begs for the service of the Lord and thus becomes happy without being illusioned by so-called material happiness. Maharaj Yudhishthira was one of the liberated souls, and therefore, for him, there was no pleasure in the vast kingdom. Good wife, obedient brothers, happy subjects, and prosperous world. These blessings automatically follow for a pure devotee, even though the devotee does not aspire for them. The example set herein is exactly suitable. It is said that one who is hungry is never satisfied by anything other than food. The whole material world is full of hungry living beings. The hunger is not for food, shelter, or sense of gratification. The hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. Due to ignorance, only they think that the world is dissatisfied because there is not sufficient food, shelter, defense, objects of sense of gratification. This is called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger. But the foolish leaders cannot see that. Even the people who are most stumptuously materially satisfied are still hungry. And what is their hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually the spiritual food, spiritual shelter, spiritual defense, and spiritual sense of gratification. These can be obtained in association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Sri Krishna. And therefore, one who has them cannot be attracted by so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense of gratification of the material world, even if they are relished by the denizens of heavenly planets. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 8:16, it is said that Lord, that even in the topmost planet of the universe, namely the Brahmalok, where the duration of the life is multiplied by millions of years by earth calculation, one cannot satisfy his hunger. Such hunger can be satisfied only when the living being is situated in immorality, which is attained by in the spiritual sky, far, far above the Brahmalok, in the association of Lord Mukunda, the Lord who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvai Namah Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shvannavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna, everyone. Before I speak on this verse, this beautiful verse actually, and this describes the qualities of Yudhishthira Maharaj, what qualifications he had. So this Yudhishthira Maharaj was great king, he was Rajarshi. So to learn about him is great, very great for us, very beneficial for us. And before I speak some words, I would like to take blessings and permission of all the Vaishnavas, so I can speak few words on this verse. So translation again. O Brahmanas, the opulence of king was so enchanting that denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of Lord, nothing could satisfy him except for Lord's service. So this chapter number 12 actually started a few days ago, and Saunak Rishi actually they were talking in the chapter number 4 of the first canto, and they were inquiring about Maharaj Parikshit. The Saunak Rishi and all the other sages, were asking Sutta Goswami about, please describe the birth of Maharaj Parikshit and about his life and everything, they wanted to know. But during the course of narration, Sutta Goswami actually, he he started other topics also, like Krishna was like in the Hastinapur and leaving the Hastinapur, entering in the Dwarka. So all these things came in between. And now sages again asking the original topic what they asked before, that please describe us about Maharaj Parikshit. So Maharaj Parikshit, actually, he was in the womb of Uttara, and he was saved by Lord from the Brahmastra, actually, which was released by Aswathama. So all the rishis requested Saunak Rishi that please describe about the birth and activities and death and destination of Maharaj Parikshit. And Maharaj Parikshit was imparted the spiritual knowledge by this transcendental knowledge by Sukadeva Goswami. So verse number 4 and 5, which we discussed yesterday and day before, we discussed the one on Tuesday and one on Thursday, and what last one we are discussing today. So these three verses, 4, 5, and 6, actually, these are describing about Yudhishthira Maharaj's exemplary rule, how he was ruling his kingdom. So verse number 4, actually, it showed the qualities of Yudhishthira Maharaj. It showed that how he administered so generously, how nicely his administration was. And the other quality was described that he was like a father to all his citizens. And he will do everything to please all his citizens. So that was third qualification. Fourth qualification described as he was free from all the desires of sense of gratification. Because why he was not interested in all these things? Because he was serving unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So that's why he was focusing only on his service rather than doing the sense of gratification. Although he has wife and children and everybody, but still he was focused on serving the lotus feet of Supreme Lord. In yesterday's shloka, Dronacharya Prabhu described about the news of his wealth and his, like, how famous he was, and his sacrifices and their destinations, his queens, his brothers, this news, and he was ruling whole universe. So this news went to the citizens of the upper planetary system, and so there the people were talking about Yudhishthira Maharaj. So that was described yesterday, and in today's shloka we are reading that the opulence of Yudhishthira Maharaj was so great. All the opulence, he was ruling all over the world. He and all other opulences, so all these opulences were so great that people in the heavenly planets, they all were discussing about this. But actually he was not attached to any of these material things. Because why he was not attached? He took shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, and his whole focus was there. So he was not at all attracted to these things. He was completely detached from all these things, and he was fully absorbed in the lotus feet of Krishna. So this is the today's shlok. So we can see how Srila Prabhupada wrote a very beautiful purport about this shlok. Actually, he says there are two things in the world which can satisfy living beings. So all jiva souls can be satisfied only by two things. So either we can actually enjoy our senses in this material world, material senses, and other thing is that we can satisfy by rendering the devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and that will give us the permanent satisfaction. Because in this material world, actually, we get engrossed with different things, but we never can get satisfied. We can never get satisfied in the material world. And the permanent happiness and satisfaction comes from serving the lotus feet of Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada actually said here in the purport that persons who are hungry, what can satisfy them? Nothing can satisfy them except the food. And many places Srila Prabhupada explains that like a fish you can bring her out of water, then you can give a nice suit, nice Rolls Royce car, nice bungalow, and all the servants and nice food, gulab jamuns, rasgullas, anything you can give. But she will not be happy at all. She will be just very unsatisfied. His whole satisfaction comes only when she's actually dropped the bag in the water. Then she will be happy. So similarly, our spiritual nature is Jivera Sarupa Krishna Nitya Das. So we are servant of Lord Krishna, and we will get satisfaction only when we are at the lotus feet of Krishna. Otherwise not, because in this material world we are actually trying to serve Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mad, Matsarya, like lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy, all these things, and we work for them like their servant. And but what happens? We are never satisfied in this material world. So actually, we like fish cannot be happy in this material world. Similarly, we also need like a fish needs an atmosphere of water. So similarly, we need the atmosphere of Brahman, Supreme, the spirit. Brahman spirit, actually we need the spiritual environment or spiritual atmosphere. So we actually belong to that atmosphere. And in that atmosphere, if we serve Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna, then what happens? What happens? We become completely happy. We have no worries, and we can live nicely under the shelter of Krishna. Because we have to serve Krishna, otherwise we will never get happy at all. So Srila Prabhupada writing, this means that the living being continuously is constitutionally servata and not to be served. So living being should not be served actually, but living being has to serve Supreme Lord. But we in the material world, we get illusion completely of the external energy. Actually, we all were, when there was pralaya, and like at the end of the Brahma's life, there was pralaya, complete destruction, complete revolution of this whole material world, and we all were in the belly of the Karnadaksha Vishnu, and then from there, all the actually Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and then we decided at that point, that when we came up, when he inspires, all the jivas goes in his belly, and then when the new Brahma comes, and his day starts, then all the jiva souls comes back. At that time, we get a choice actually that whether we can go to the spiritual world or we want to enjoy with the material world. So at that time, we had the choice. So come under the control of Yog Maya or come under the control of Mahamaya. So we selected actually to enjoy separately from Krishna and come to this material world. And since at that time we are rotting in this material world, taking different bodies and become different jiva souls. We go to become bird, we become dog, become tree, we become a small insect, so we are taking birth after birth, and doing different works like all the papa karma, and we are never happy actually. Even in the human form of life, which comes after millions and millions of birth, still we are attracted to Maya Devi, and we work under illusion of this Kama, Krodha, Mad, Lobh, Moh, Matsarya, and that's why we are never satisfied in this material world. So we will be satisfied only when we actually take shelter of Lord Krishna, follow the Krishna consciousness, and do service for the Krishna. Then Lord will be happy, and we will be completely happy, completely satisfied. So our satisfaction depends on us actually, what shelter we take. So Radhanath Maharaj all the time said, that people ask him question, he said, which dog you are following? There are two dogs, one dog is material dog and one dog is spiritual, So if we are following our So our like Paramatma, then we are actually happy. But when we are following the dictation of this material world, then we will be always unhappy. So we have to actually feed our Atma. And feeding Atma is by performing the devotional service. So when we perform devotional service, then we will be completely happy. One falsely thinks himself to be served, but actually he is not served. He is the servant of the senses like lust, anger, greed, all those things. He realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but he's only a servant of his senses. So once one starts serving the Lord, then slowly we actually realize that we are serving our pride, our anger, our greed, all these things actually. And so then we can, once we understand this, we should try to get out of, come under their dictation actually, and we should serve Lord that way. When one is proper source of attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of material world, but he is only a servant of senses. At that time, he begs for service of the Lord and thus become happy without being illusioned by so-called material happiness. So once we realize that we are under the dictation of these all material senses and material things, then we can get out of these things by rendering the devotional service. So once, like Yudhishthira Maharaj was one of the liberators also. So Yudhishthira Maharaj can realize, that in this material world there is nothing, except serving the Lord, and that is the best thing actually we can do in this world. Therefore, for him there was no pleasure in the vast kingdom. He had so vast kingdom, all over the universe, he was ruling. He had good wife, his wife was like Draupadi was the wife of all the Pandavas, all 5 Pandavas. But all the Pandavas is there, other wives also, like Yudhishthira Maharaj. It is described that he has one wife, her name was Devaki. It is written in Mahabharata in chapter 95 in the Sambhav Parva that his wife was Devaki, which was the daughter of Gova's son, who was the leader of Savior tribe. And their son, and Yudhishthira Maharaj's son through the Devaki was Yodeha. And there was another wife of Yudhishthira Maharaj, which is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 22 chapter, and 30 and 31 verse. It described Yudhishthira Maharaj's other wife, her name was Pauravi. And there was a son of Yudhishthira Maharaj through her, through Pauravi, and his name was Devak. And Yudhishthira Maharaj is one son through Devaki, and his name was Yodhe. Similarly, Arjun also had different wives also other than Draupadi, like Ulupi, and he went to Manipur, and Manipur's king's daughter, whose son was Barbarik. So every brother has different wife. Bhim also has Hidamba and Kali. From Hidamba he had Ghatotkach, and from Kali he has Sarvagata. Similarly, Sahadev had wife Vijaya, and his son was Suhotra. So all the Pandavas, they have so many sons, and kingdom, good wife, obedient brothers, and obedient sons also, happy subject. All the citizens were very happy, and this whole prosperous world was his. So in spite of all these things, Yudhishthira Maharaj was not interested in anything material of this world, and he was only serving Lord Krishna. So these blessings automatically follow for a pure devotee. So all these things, he had good wives, good children, good obedient brothers, and all the happy subjects. How this came about? This came about by the mercy of Lord Krishna, because once one is takes shelter of the Lord, everything good comes in his life. Nothing is unauspicious. So even though the devotee does not aspire for it, like Dhruva Maharaj, he did the tapasya, and then after tapasya, when Lord of Vishnu came, and he asked him, that what blessings you need, you want, please ask, I will give. And he still said, no, I don't want anything. Why I will go to the broken pieces of glass, just give me your bhakti. But still, because he had that desire to rule bigger kingdom than even his great grandfather Brahmaji, so he got the Dhruva Lok, which was much bigger than the Brahma Lok. So Lord actually, if he had tries to fulfill the desire of his devotee, but that desire should be not be detrimental to our bhakti. If we can perform bhakti, Krishna will give that. But otherwise, Krishna is our well-wisher also, a well-wisher father. So he gives the thing, which will be beneficial for us. Sometimes, if he asks something, which will be detrimental to our bhakti, Krishna will never give, to us. If we are devotee, because like mother, he will never give a little child the knife, because she knows that with the knife he can cut his finger, he can start bleeding, he can poke it in the eye, something like that, So she knows that this is dangerous. That's why in the houses, all the medicines, everything is kept up or locked in the lock, so that children cannot take it. So similarly, Lord also, if we are devotees serving him, he will definitely keep us away from all these problems, and he will never give us any blessing which will be bad for us. The whole material world is full of hungry living beings. And so Prabhupada is writing in the purport that this whole material world is full of hungry living beings. But what is that hunger actually? That hunger is not for the food or shelter, roti, kapada, makan, those problems, they are not hungry for that. Actually, we all are hungry for the spiritual atmosphere. We are looking for a spiritual atmosphere. But due to our ignorance, because we are under the illusion, that in that illusion, actually, we think that this whole world, we think about our sense of gratification. And that's why we all are completely dissatisfied. And many times we think that there is no sufficient food and shelter, like this. All the scientists say the sun will disappear one day, his energy will finish. They think, the different things actually, but they are not true, because Krishna will take care of all these things once we take his devotional service, come on to his shelter actually. And we all are put into illusion because we don't have the knowledge. Yeah, once we look towards Krishna, then Krishna will give us, because Krishna is the Surya Saman, he is like a sun. So once sun comes, all the darkness dissipates. Similarly, all our ignorance, once we look towards Krishna, serve him, then all our ignorance of this material world will actually dissipate completely. If we take full shelter of him and serve him wholeheartedly with love and devotion. Like a little child, he if he's crying loudly, and you can give her any mother, he will not be satisfied. Actually, he will keep crying. But once he gets his mother, comes in the mother's lap, he will be fully satisfied. Similarly, we can cry in this material world as much as you want, but until unless we go to our real father, mother, who is Lord Krishna actually, till that time, we will be crying, we will never be satisfied. So this is our position, and we should think where is our shelter, real shelter. And if we go to that shelter, we can be very happy. Like we do Nirjala Ekadashi, we do different Ekadashis and everything. But in this material world, in the modern age now, we should do the e-fast also. E-fast means a fasting from our smartphones, iPad, e-pad, whatever it is, so that also, because that's very detrimental in the modern society. Because as soon as we get up, we try to see text messages and the WhatsApp messages and all those emails and all those things, and then we keep thinking, meditating upon that, rather than meditating on Krishna's name, even though the beads are in our hand, but our whole consciousness goes to them. So actually, just excuse me 1 second. Sorry. So if we do fasting along with the real Ekadashi or real fasting, that will be very useful to us and we can concentrate more. So at least, while we are chanting or anything in the morning, till we finish all the chanting and read our Bhagavatam class and everything, then only we should see our message, not before that. And if we can live without seeing whole day and concentrate more on reading and every Bhagavatam, then it will be great for all of us. Yeah, we know that there may be some messages and you have to answer and everything, but just take some time, which is very short time, not too much time, and just answer them and go back to the real business of Krishna consciousness. That will really help. So that's actually what we do is all yajna, like sacrifice and like in spiritual life. So what is the yajna? Yajna kunda is actually mouth of Lord Vishnu, and the fire is the tongue of Lord Vishnu, and the ahuti what we put in the yajna kunda Lord gets satisfied with that. So many times people say, oh, in the yajna, they do big yajna for rain and everything sometime in the big cities, and they put like many liters of ghee and many liters of all paraphernalia and all grains and everything, and people think that these people are wasting so much grain and ghee and everything, rather than putting in the fire, feed the poor people. But what will happen to feed the poor people? Krishna will never get satisfied and he will not give, because by yajna actually Lord gets satisfied, and once Lord gets satisfied, all the demigods get satisfied, and then they give rain and like sun god, moon god, everything comes properly, like we see in Prathu Maharaj regime, that everything was actually coming properly on proper time. Rain was coming on proper time, crops were coming, all the land, the earth planet also was giving good crops and everything, so nobody was hungry that time, everything was going on time. But nowadays you see too much heat, too much cold, things like that, not enough rain, all these things are happening because Lord is not happy, people are not performing yajna properly, and that's why these all things are happy. So we have to see what will make Krishna happy and work accordingly, then everything will be great. And we should actually give up the illusion and come to the knowledge. And how the real knowledge comes? The real knowledge comes by reading Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita actually gives us the knowledge, what Krishna says, what Krishna wants, he has described to Arjuna actually, and through Arjuna to all of us, because Arjuna was not simple person. He had an eternal body actually. And so Arjuna didn't have body like us, that's why in the same body he can go to Indralok, because upper planetary system one cannot go in the same body, but he could go, so his body was eternal actually, that's why he can go anywhere. But we cannot, nobody else can do like that. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger. So people go feel hungry for spiritual, but in the material body, he is misrepresented always that, oh, I'm hungry for the material things. And then he will look for different things in this material world. But our hunger will never go away. So this type of thing actually, like Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is mentioning that 18:6, which is Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuno Mamupetya Kanteya Punarjanman Avidyate. So Krishna is saying here that from highest planet to the lowest planet in the Patal Lok, all the places are full of misery. There is no happiness at all. And there is a repeated birth and death. We go to this cycle millions and millions of times. but who attains my abode never takes birth again. So somehow or the other, we should go to his Lord Krishna's abode. And once we reach that abode, then all our miseries and this cycle, repeated cycle of birth and death will go away completely. So that is the only shelter we have to take. Other shelters are not good. We will be always hungry, always dissatisfied. So we have to be in association of Lord Mukunda, who awards his devotee the transcendental pleasure of liberation. So liberation can be awarded only by Lord Krishna, no one else. So we should try best to get liberated from this material world and enjoy with Krishna. So how we can get detached actually from this material world? So Srila Prabhupada has given us that we have to follow the 4 regulatory principles, and by that actually no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling. So these are the pillars of spiritual life. So if we don't have those 4 things, we cannot actually progress in our bhakti. And second thing is recommended is we should meditate on the lotus feet of Supreme Lord. Because these 4 regulations, even we follow, they are only restrictions. We will not progress without them, but with that, we cannot progress in the spiritual. We can only progress if we take the shelter of lotus feet of Supreme Lord. And then we have to read about the past times of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, Katha, everything we have to discuss and read properly through Krishna books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. Then we can actually progress in spiritual bhakti. More other important thing is chanting the holy name, because Lord has put all his energy in his name. So if we chant his name, he gets so happy with us. So we should chant as much as we can. And other thing, we have to hear about Krishna from his pure devotees, and that will benefit us. So we have to find the taste in this, the real taste, proper taste in the spiritual life. And we should know that the spiritual life is much more superior than this material life. Material life is actually degrading for us. And we should know the sense of control is very inferior. And if we take care of the superior things, the inferior things will go away automatically. So we have to actually give up the material things and get hold of the spiritual things, doing the sadhana bhakti and taking shelter of Guru and Krishna. So I will end here, and we can have any comments, questions, reflections, we can discuss it now. Thank you very much for hearing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Vishnu Gada Prabhu, please go ahead.
I raised my hand after you started. It's okay. You'll go. I follow.
No, Prabhuji, please, you go ahead.
Mine was a more frivolous question. I was just going to ask, how did the demigods know what was going on? They said they were very happy or desirous of having the same opulence. Well, how did they know what was going on? And those same methods of communication still take place today?
So nowadays, Prabhu, the system, like email, text, all those things. But before, because Krishna is present as a Paramatma in everyone's soul. So actually, by their soul, they will getting inspiration that this thing is happening. Similarly, we see when Parikshit Maharaja was sitting on the bank of Ganges, and Sukadeva Goswami was going to start Bhagavatam. At that time, all the people, all the sages from all the upper planetary system came right away, It's not like, and they were not coming, oh, it will take me 2 days or 3 days, they came right away in 1 second. So at that time, people were very pure and they can realize what is going on everywhere, by Krishna's mercy. So at that time, because now we are so much contaminated with all the illusion and with all the dirtiness of this material life, that we cannot actually pursue those things at this age, until unless we are clean, we are pure devotee, then Krishna will actually give us intelligence. Otherwise not. But that was the only method in those days. And everybody knew what is going on all over the universe, actually, not just this universe, but everywhere. So that was the way at that time, through the Krishna, actually, as a Paramatma. He was giving them intelligence.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying. They didn't use email or telephones or stuff like that. But at the same time, so you said all of these people had, I'm sure that some of them were pure devotees enough that they were in contact with the super soul, but I'm wondering if all of them, I mean, we learn in, when Lord Brahma stole the calves and cowherd boys, that, he was aware of what was going on the earth, because he was Lord Brahma. He had his awareness everywhere, and similar other demigods like Indra, etc. When the Lord Krishna stopped the Indra sacrifice, he knew what was going on because he had his sensory understanding. It doesn't say that he did it by super soul necessarily. So I was just wondering, that's all. So another point. Go ahead.
Actually, Krishna put him in illusion because he wanted to play the Brahma Vimana Lila, and he wanted to lift a Govardhan, so he can be with all his Brajavasis for 7 days in a row. So that was Krishna's desire. So Krishna put them in illusion, Lord Brahma and Indra and everybody. So we all are illusioned by Krishna's energies, actually. So Krishna wanted to play, that was his desire. That's what Brahmaji got bewildered like that, and Indra also got bewildered. Otherwise, if it is good thing, Krishna, Lord will tell them in the form of Paramatma.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Mataji, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. When you were telling about how Krishna's blessings are, he gives only what is good for the devotees, and he won't give them something which will harm the devotees. I was actually listening to a lecture the other day, and I was hearing there that the blessings that are coming from Krishna, they're all auspicious, whereas the blessings that you get from the demigods, they may look like they are auspicious initially, but actually they're not auspicious in the end. And then the example of Vrikasur is given, and Maharaj actually compared, this was His Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj. So he said, Vrikasur performed tapasya for 6 days and he pleased Lord Shiva, and he got the benediction that he could put his hand on anyone's head and he will kill that person. He will, like, the head will just, burst and the person will die. That's the benediction he got. Whereas Dhruva Maharaj, he performed tapasya for 6 months, and then he got the darshan of Lord Vishnu, and he became a pure devotee of the Lord, and ultimately he went back to Godhead. So sometimes when we get benedictions from Lord, Supreme Lord, it may not come right away. It may take some time. Nevertheless, even though it takes time, the results are all auspicious. Whereas even if you get the benedictions quickly, they won't be auspicious. So in Vrikasur's case, we see that after 6 days, when he got that benediction, he was running after Lord Shiva to put his hand on the head of Lord Shiva and kill Lord Shiva and take his wife. That was his plan. So of course the Lord had to intervene and save Lord Shiva by tricking this Vrikasur in killing himself with that benediction. So the result of the benediction that he got ultimately just was he got killed himself. Whereas the benedictions that we get from the Lord, even though they come late, even if they come late, they're all auspicious. I was just thinking about that. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Ram Sham Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Damrat Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada Guru Maharaj ki jai. Yeah, very nice lecture, Prabhu. So, you told about the service to the Lord, which Yudhishthir Maharaj was having, you know. So Yudhishthir Maharaj was completely absorbed in the service to the Lord. And even though he was having, you know, so materially opulent, he was not attracted to the material opulence. Like he was having the vast king throughout the world. He was, you know, like ruling, and he was having good wives and obedient brothers. You very detailed. You told about the, you know, his wife's name even and his sons. So it was really wonderful. I was just wondering, you know, like the current what we have administration for the ruling the world. I mean, so ruling the any country, a state, and you know, like say here in US or in India. So we have administration kind of first president. So can we assume like a president was King Yudhishthir, and then he was having his brother Bhima. He was home minister, kind of as per the, you know, like when he had you know, assigned the duty, and then Arjuna as a defense minister, and Nakul Sahadeva similar to that. So were they four one? I mean, the five only engaged in managing, or they had further, you know, like further members, they were managing that, or it was the will of the Lord. By that, by mercy of the Lord, things were managed, getting managed. Like Ambarish Maharaj, when we take that, so by the will of the Lord, the administration of the Ambarish Maharaj, you know, like kingdom of the Ambarish Maharaj was getting managed. So I was just trying to understand, this means how Yudhishthira Maharaj kingdom was getting managed.
Okay. As far as I heard, Prabhu, that they were not like ministers or anything like Arjun. They were all under Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj was deciding everything in his department, and they were helping him in all the respects. But they were not like, one was not like a home minister, or one was not like defense minister, or like that. They were helping whatever Maharaj Yudhishthira wanted. And by Krishna's mercy and his will, you know, everything was going so smoothly, because when Krishna is happy, you know, everything can go smoothly. Rain was coming on time, everybody was happy, grains were coming enough, you know, so everything. Because nowadays the big problem is, you know, all these fires and all these, somewhere people are getting rain, somewhere not. Like in our area, you know, how many days there was no good rain, you know, all the grass was drying and everything. So this thing is happening because the demigods are not happy. Krishna is not happy. When Krishna is happy, all the demigods are automatically happy. We need not to work extra for them. So that's why Yudhishthira Maharaj, everybody was happy in the kingdom, in the ruling of under the Yudhishthira Maharaj, because he was Rajarshi and he was a great saint, and also ruling the kingdom also, and all the citizens were very happy. So that is my understanding, Prabhu, but I do not know. Maybe Vishnugada Prabhu can put some light on that how he was administrating.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, I mean, I don't think we have specific devotees cited as being the minister of Yudhishthira or like that, but perhaps there are, maybe in some other places there. I don't know of them, but we know from Krishna's activities in Dwarka, he had his ministers like Uddhava, and every day he would go to the assembly house and he would have his assembly house, and he had his assembly house in Sudharma, isn't it?
Sudharma Hall.
Yeah, so he had his system of administration, but he was in charge, and his people were all following him. They were devotees, so that was working. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So then I had another observation was what we heard that the topics got a little bit off from the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, because they had asked about Maharaj Parikshit's birth, and then there was the Brahmastra that came from Ashvatthama, but after Ashvatthama sent his Brahmastra and Lord Krishna saved Parikshit Maharaj in the womb, he wasn't born just then. He was born later. So as soon as he was saved by Lord Krishna, then the prayers were there by Queen Kunti. So she was glorifying Lord Krishna about how wonderful he was right after Lord Krishna saved Parikshit Maharaj in the womb. So that's where the sidetrack came for the prayers of Queen Kunti. Does that make sense?
And then he started describing about Krishna living Hastinapur, and then how he was received in the Dwarka, and so all these things came in between. And then again
before the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. Yeah.
Right. Then again, so all the rishis asked Sut Goswami that please come back to the real subject, what we were discussing before, So that's why they requested him again, and then the description starts again.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Vishnuda Prabhu and Kaivalya Prabhu for explaining in detail. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else has any descriptions or comments or questions? Otherwise, we will end here, and we will join Bhagavatam class again at 7:50 tomorrow.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaः. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much,
Yes, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Prabhuji.
giving me the chance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.